Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to the next video, or the next SEDAN video. Today we're going to be installing the intercooler and some piping on the front of the engine. That's stuff that's not going to be in the way of anything else or need to be removed. It's something that can just go ahead and be installed right now. So I'm going to pull the front bumper and take a look at the intercooler mounts and everything, and we'll try to get that all mocked up and mounted. I'll probably have to cut on the front bumper core support, which is pretty common in these cars. Like, you just have to do that. It's kind of a necessity to clear the thickness of the intercooler. So we'll do that and get started. So yeah, as you can see, it's freshly lowered on the new BCs. And yeah, now it's time to get to some of the turbo stuff. So here we go. All right, so here's a rough mock-up of the intercooler piping. These bends are not going to look quite like that because they need to be clocked in different directions to make the curve coming out of the intercooler and then up into the throttle body there. So the MAF flange will be closest to the throttle body, this piece here, in a straight section for less turbulence. Throttle body will turn in right there. This will go down. There's a tile blow-off valve flange here, so I'll probably grab a tile blow-off valve if I don't already have one laying around. And then into the core, well, actually flow's going the other way, but whatever. It has this elbow on the hot side, and then a reducer here to go to the outlet of the turbo, which is, I believe, 2 inch, 2 or 2.5. Oh, no, never mind. There's 3 inch here, reducer, 2.5, another reducer, 2 inch outlet, so that makes sense. Okay, and then there's the SPA manifold I'm going to be using, wastegate port on the back side there. I already had the front face of it planed. I need to check the turbine flange to make sure it's flat, and just start throwing some of this on. Really, the first part's going to be mocking up the intercooler, so we're going to have to jack the front end up, pull the wheels, pull the fender liners, take the bumper off, and then figure out some mounts for that thing and go from there. So that's the next steps. Alright, now we've got the car supported on jack stands, wheels are off. Now we need to start worrying about taking off the front bumper to figure out the intercooler clearance. The cold side pipe is going to need to go down and in this little corner here. So this is the factory airbox cold air induction piece. That'll need to be pulled away from the plastic here. So pull that piece out. Then there's factory horns down there. Those will need to be removed or relocated. Obviously I'm going to keep a horn, but I might upgrade those to like some Hella Supertones or something. But either way, they will have to be moved for now so that we can get the cold side intercooler pipe in. This mass airflow sensor will be going bye-bye because that's a stock one, designed to be run in draw through and not see boost. So since now this section of pipe will have boost, this can no longer be here. And we'll be running a digital programmable MAF from RK Tunes, which just sits in this little slot here. So that'll take place of this and go into the throttle body here. So first we'll get this out of here, get the horn moved, and get the bumper off. Those are our next steps. Here we go. Alright, so looking from the bottom, it looks like the horn just has a single 13mm nut. Excuse all the cobwebs. This car's obviously been sitting for a couple of years, so it looks like we got some dirt daubers here too. So that's cool. There's the rest of the oily underneath. We'll get all that cleaned up here shortly. But for now, we need to remove this horn. So we're going to take off that, where is it? 13. Come on. It's so hard to see. There we go. Take that off, and I unplugged the electrical already. We'll get that out of the way, knock that dirt dauber nest out of the way, see if we can fit the cold side pipe in. Here we go. Alright, so I pulled off the fender liner with a couple 8mm. This side of the bumper just slides into this little plastic bracket, so you don't need to worry about that. But you do need to disconnect the fog light because that's going to come out with the bumper. So there we go. Then on the front side, there's some bolts. I believe they're 13s here. They're normally hidden by the molding, so if you have all your molding, you got to pop off that plastic piece on both sides to get to those. And I'll have to get to this fog light to disconnect it, and then it should be able to just slide forward. So here we go. Alrighty, I have the bumper removed after pulling off those 4 13 millimeters. They just slid off the end mounts here. They just kind of like slide into that little slot, top and bottom. There's the horns we have to remove, or at least one of them. So I'll go ahead and remove that. And then we'll install the cold side pipe to see approximately where the intercooler is going to be happy lining up, and go from there as far as building some mounts for it. Typically we'll go off of this area, or most people on E36s will build something off of these bumper shocks. So we'll see how that goes. Here we go. Alrighty, now I've removed one of the factory horns and tried to move the wiring out of the way as best I could. Now we're going to put on the cold side pipe. I also took off the factory MAF, so the cold side pipe will go right here and down that way. So let's see how that fits. Alrighty, well, I mocked up the cold side pipe. It does clear down there. It looks like the blow-off valve is going to fit basically right where the horn was, the other one. So that'll be okay, I guess. This coupler needs to be rotated. That's obviously not the right clocking angle to get into the intercooler this way. And then I wish the MAF flange wasn't on the side, because technically for proper moisture draining you really want it to be on the top. That'll probably still be okay. One thing I did notice though, this pipe I got, unfortunately, is not bead rolled on the end. So there's no lip there for the clamp to bite onto, which means that it's highly likely to blow out of the pipe even with the clamp tight. I'm not going to be running very much boost initially, but still, I really want to get that bead rolled. So for now I'm just mocking this up so I can figure out intercooler core positioning and where to mount that. But I'm definitely going to have this rolled, because that's kind of a no-no with turbo stuff. Shame on you, Jason, or whoever built this pipe. Shame. One other little thing I noticed when trying to position this pipe into a temporary spot is this bracket where the horn mounted touches the pipe. If you clock it all the way over here, it touches here. I kind of want it in between, but this bracket's preventing me from having it touch nothing, so I'm going to bend this bracket down and out of the way, since we're no longer going to use that for the other horn. So that'll get rid of, actually I may just cut it off. But either way, we want it in between there floating, not just constantly hitting the body. That's a no-no, so let's get rid of that. Alright, now that I have the cold side pipe basically in place of where it's going to go, with the bracket cleared, the horn mount missing, it's not touching anything, we need to mock up the intercooler core location. And on E36s, the core needs to fit behind these brackets. These are the bumper support brackets. So there's a little galley here, or a little space above this lower plastic tray and underneath the kidney grill surround, where you can basically sneak a core in here. So you end up having to cut out some of this plastic, or all of it, and some of this lower tray to clear the core. So what I'm going to do right now is remove this tray. Since I know I need to change this radiator anyway, I'm actually going to remove this tray and the radiator, and then we'll maybe not the radiator, we'll go ahead and get the intercooler into that little cubby if we can, see what we need to cut on, and go from there. I always say go from there. I've realized that. Does that annoy you guys as much as it annoys me? Alright, we'll just go from there. Thumbs up, yeah. Alright, so I removed the lower panel. I turned this mount out to give me a little bit more clearance to put the intercooler back a little bit more. Still is going to need to go back farther, as you can see by this misalignment. But basically, to get it back farther, we have to trim this plastic piece on both sides, because that's where it's hitting at the moment. And then we're also going to have to notch out the corner of this piece on each side, I believe. So start with the plastic, trim a little bit, see if we can get it back as far as we need to, and then start with the brackets, or next to the brackets. Okay, most recent update, getting quite a bit closer. If you recall in the prior clips, the intercooler was quite a bit farther forward Now it's right up against the auxiliary fan. I want to keep the stock auxiliary fan because A, it's really strong, B, it's just reliable and good for AC. If it ever fails, I can fit a huge Spall pusher fan in there because it's quite a thick fan, the factory one. So if I keep enough clearance for that, I should be able to fit anything I want later. In order to get the intercooler back as far as I have right now, I cut this piece of plastic, and there's a little seam that it makes factory right here. It's split there from the factory, and I decided, okay, well that's about the edge of the front of the auxiliary fan. So I just cut straight down using some snips, and now I've got basically some factory ducting still in place, which is nice. Didn't cut it all out for no reason. The other side, take a look. Same deal. Cut the plastic just back to this certain point right in front of the auxiliary fan so that the intercooler is basically pretty much butted up against it. I'm going to obviously mount it a couple millimeters forward so it doesn't actually touch it, because there's no cage on the fan. So it could just rub against there, so you want to make sure there's a gap. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Basically retains some kind of ducting sandwich still, which is nice. You want to force all the air through the coolers and not allow it to go around them. So this kind of piece is important because after the air goes through the intercooler, you want it to continue to go through the radiator and not just go out and around and take the path of least resistance. So that's good. Right now, we need to raise the intercooler. So about, a few inches here, and that'll basically bring it up to just tucked underneath these kidney grills here. To do that, we have to cut out this corner of the mount here. So we have to do like a little kind of triangle cut like that, and same thing on this side. Once we get that cut out, we should be able to bring it to at least the top level here. If we want to mount it even higher than that, we'll need to notch out the top side as well. So that's next up on the chopping block. Here we go. Alrighty, mocking up of the core continues. I measured the length of the core, drew a center line here to try to line it up with the kidney grills and make it as close as I could before I actually get it in place. Then I also marked these brackets where I'm going to cut out a corner tab so that the core can fit up in there. Stud will still be on the front side. This face of it will still be there, but the top and bottom corners here will be gone. Same thing with this one. So I'm going to pull these two brackets off, throw them in the vise, and cut those out real quick, put them back on, and then hopefully we can lift the core all the way up into place and they'll clear these perfectly. So let's check it out. Alrighty, I just used a air-powered cutoff wheel to clearance these brackets. These are the bumper shocks or whatever. I just pulled them out of the car. This is the passenger side, so I cut a little corner tab out to clear the intercooler in tank, both on the top and bottom side. So you can see I have the front stud there still to mount the bumper, but plenty more intercooler clearance. And same thing for the other side. So this is the driver's side, I suppose. Well, I hope it is. Actually, no, I'm backwards. This is driver. This is passenger. It's the tow hooks on the passenger side. So anyways, same thing on this side. Clearance the corners there. So now I'm gonna go bolt these back in and we'll check the clearance to the core, see if we can actually snug it up in there. All right, looking much better now. Pretty much where we want to be. Those corners I cut out of the brackets work perfectly. There's the in tank just fine. This side needs to go back a little bit more, and we might have to notch this piece a little, we'll see. But basically the idea here is to get the intercooler completely in front of the stock auxiliary fan without having to change that to a lower profile fan. So looks to be just about centered. As soon as I'm totally happy with it, I'll start building mounts for the hanging it. But yeah, this is really close here. That pipe's almost perfect. I might need to, I've shoved this one way up in there, so I might need to pull it out just a little bit to get a little bit more bite on that coupler, and then we should be good there. So one step closer, hell yeah. All right, so as you can see from this angle as well, we've got the heat exchanger sandwich here. So radiator, auxiliary fan, ducting, well, actually auxiliary fan's right behind this one. I don't know what's there, radiator maybe, who knows. But the intercooler is behind the bumper beam and everything, which is good. That'll be nice and protected. And now we just need to figure out, or I need to figure out, how I'm going to mount it. There's two bosses on the top side of the intercooler. Typically I would hang those from somewhere back here, like rig something up to bracket it there. We'll just have to see. It might be easier actually to go from these mounts straight across because it's almost at the right height to do so. I'll have to think about that. I've never done that. So maybe that's the ticket. But yeah, this thing is looking really good. Can't wait to drive it. Oh man. Alright, so now we have to mount the intercooler core. If you guys recall, I put the hot side pipe on. Still needs to be bead rolled, but I'm trying to get the intercooler mounted up. I notched these brackets so that we can get the core in the right spot. Cut out the top and bottom side there to clear the in tanks. And then now we just basically try to hang the core in this area without touching the auxiliary fan, but as close to it as possible and as high up as possible so that we have good ground clearance and good front bumper clearance, because when you install an intercooler core on these things, you have to cut the bumper beam, which is metal. So this upper piece is metal and this channel is metal. So basically for the entire width of the core, you have to notch this out and notch the lower level out so they can clear it. So first step is to hang it so that you know where to notch this thing. That way you don't have to cut this as much as, or more than necessary, because that's pretty damn thick metal and it's also reinforcing the front end a bunch. So previously I've like done some Home Depot rigging with like garage hanger L brackets and stuff, and I made a bracket, an L bracket, come off of this and come forward, and then I ran like a piece of aluminum stock across the two L brackets and then hung the intercooler from that. Well, this time I still have completely stock bumper shocks, and there's actually a vertical bolt through both of them at the same height. So I'm gonna see if I can do like a real cheap, simple method of hanging it. I've got this piece of aluminum stock here, which I used prior, and I've already got the two bungs on the intercooler. So what I'm gonna do is just mount this like so. I'll drill 2 holes and bolt that directly to the intercooler, and then I'll have a bracket that I can use to position it around. And then basically I think I'll have another hole out here somewhere and cut the ends off that I don't need, and that'll just mount to the bumper shocks right there. So we'll see how that works out. Hopefully it's a nice and easy, simple and cheap method. Ideally you would also want to rubber isolate the intercooler and not just hard mount it like that because of vibration and stuff. So you would want to like put some little rubber bushings or something between the intercooler and the mounts, or maybe even on the top side here and have the whole rail mount to a bushing, but something to dampen it. For now we're just trying to get it done, or at least get it mocked up in place, and then we'll go from there. So go from there, my catchphrase, go from there. Let's go from there, go from there. All right, so I marked the distance from the holes of the intercooler and mocked it up in the drill press here, and drilled some 5/16 inch holes so that an 8mm bolt just fits just barely through there. So basically now I'm going to bolt this bar to the intercooler, and then we'll position it on the car and figure out where we need to mount the sides of the bar and what we're going to do about like bushings or whatever else. But that's a simple very effective way to make an intercooler mount. Use some L stock because it has a lot more strength than just a flat piece, being that it's an L. I think this is only 1/8 of an inch thick or something. Like, it's not, oh, there's a label right there. Oh, 1/16. Okay, so there you go. This is from Lowe's or Home Depot or something. But basically, yeah, it's a very cheap, lightweight, easy way to mount an intercooler. So let's go test it out. All right, so the intercooler, the holes mostly line up. I think I need to like drill them out just a little bit more to give it a little bit more space, because it seems like it's kind of binding. It doesn't want to sit all the way down, and I think that's just a clearance issue. It's just a little bit tight here. So I'm gonna take those out, or take the bar back off, run it through the drill a little bit more just to kind of hog those holes out, and then we'll try it again. All right, well, I put in super short bolts, and these bosses are just like very shallow, so it actually still is bottoming out, so I'm gonna have to put some washers in there to space that out. But now we at least have the intercooler supported. You can easily pick it up by that and try to position it over here. Let's see what we got. Let me get some spotlights going again. Alright, so you guys obviously know by now I'm not a fabricator or anything, so I apologize if this method is ghetto to you, or you're like a master fabricator and you just can't stomach watching this stuff. But here's what we've got. The L bracket bolted to the intercooler for now, and I just have this bracket not cut to length and resting on top of the bumper shocks. So it's just sitting right here, okay? And the intercooler is mostly where it needs to be. I really want it to be higher than this because it would line up with this pipe better. And I think it should be as close to the kidney grills as possible. Unfortunately, with a super ghetto mounting solution like this, that's kind of hard to achieve without actually fabricating things. Another solution is to rotate this to where it's basically on the top side, rotated 90 degrees, and that would get me this much height, which would raise the intercooler, you know, a decent amount. That may be enough. I don't really know where the bumper's gonna line up or whatnot, but you know, I do want it to go probably as high as possible, at least another 1/2 inch or inch. So rotating that L bracket should give me some height. We'll do that and then report back and see if that's enough. If not, we may have to come up with another solution. But this is just a quick and dirty way to hang it and see where we need to be. Alright dudes, thanks for watching so far. Sorry I didn't get the intercooler install totally finished. I was just hanging it and mocking it up, and I ran out of time before I left town to go to Utah for Thanksgiving with my family. But I'll be back next week, and hopefully can get that finalized and get a bunch more progress done on that thing. I hope to have it running in December because I have some really exciting events to drive with it in January, so I really need to hustle on it and make sure that progress keeps going. So thanks for watching, and see you next time. And here's a snow for you.